From the northern shores and woodlands to the west, it's history. From copper mines and iron ore, the Great Lakes fishery. To the farmlands of the southern counties and east to Chesapeake Bay, look at all that waits the sportsman across the USA. And sometimes when the moon brings out the diamonds and the snow, the stillness of the forest is encased in Arctic cold. The wind might whisper through the trees, listen to it say, the beauty of our great outdoors across the USA.
Hi there, come on in. If you're a deer hunter, you probably don't get a buck every year. Certainly not a big buck, very few people do. We're going to show you some big bucks later on in this program. The stories from the hunters, oh, these are just incredible. But first, I'm going to tell you a tale about my opening day 2 years ago, 1988. I saw what I thought was a doe coming, from a couple hundred yards away. Well, make a long story short, it turned out to be a buck, a big buck. I missed my chance, but it's an entertaining story. Stay tuned. I'm Fred Trost. It's time for Outdoor Digest. Weekly telecast of Outdoor Digest is made possible through the cooperation of this and other public television stations nationwide. Weekly production of the Outdoor Digest television show is a function of Fred Trost's Outdoors Club, promoting public understanding of hunting and fishing, appreciation of wildlife, and enjoyment of our great outdoors.
It's 20 after 7 here on opening morning. We're on a knoll that is overlooking a little aspen stand and the tail end of a swamp that is right by a rye field, a big rye field. Jimmy Butler's potato farm is right here. A lot of deer are in the rye field in the morning, and they move into here and through here to bed. We're on a knoll, and on this knoll, it sort of splits the deer runs. So they come from that field and they go both directions. We only saw a couple deer out in that field a few minutes ago. Nothing has moved through here since daylight. We've had some rain mixed with snow. Wind has been gusting on and off. Not bad conditions, but not the best. We need a few more deer. Well, we'll just wait them out.
Well, we couldn't wait as long as we planned, though. Seemed that the weather got the best of us.
Here we are, sleet, freezing rain coming down. It's only 5 after 8, but we had to abandon the blind. Our camera was getting soaked, everything was getting soaked. We didn't see any deer. So here we are out on the road, which you can see. We have a lot of sleet on the road. Not the best opening day conditions by a long shot, but we know bucks were taken, and we're going to go out and talk to some people who've had some success.
Remember, that was my plan, but first, a quick check of a small swamp.
Well, the rain is pelting down right now. It's only about 8:15 in the morning on opening day, and this really dampens the enthusiasm of hunters, dampens the activity of deer, and it makes it all around miserable. It's going to be tough driving getting back to the Mackinac Bridge. We're going to give this one last shot here. Now, Jeff is going to be working from that barn back through this swamp, and usually we kick out some deer. At least that's what Jimmy Butler says. We'll be kicking deer out here that may come right across this bean field. I'm going to be down in the corner. Maybe I'll get a shot at a buck. I don't know. It's our last chance, our last hope.
Well, I thought at the time that this was our last hope, because I had told Bob Garner and everybody else that by 10 o'clock or so, I'd quit hunting, and John Ford and I would head across the UP talking to successful hunters. We could hear their gunshots. The way the rain was coming down, I was almost looking forward to this being the end of my hunt. That's when I said goodbye to Jeffrey Bickle and wished him luck.
Well, we squirted about, 16, 18 deer out of there. What'd you think, Jeff?
Yeah.
So what are you going to do the rest of the day?
Well, go eat something and then head back out to the woods, probably.
You're going to sit?
Yeah. Probably sit on the bean field here tonight and watch for that big buck.
What do you make of it? an opener like this?
Weather could have been better. Wind could have been down a little bit. I don't think the deer are moving too much this morning.
True, the deer weren't moving as much as they had been a week earlier, or even as much as they'd move if the weather was better. But before we started towards the Mackinac Bridge, John and I decided to take my gun and his camera to the edge of a rye field, just for an hour or two. Even though the rain would pelt down between drizzling spells, we found the deer were active in the late morning. And since visibility was poor with the haze, I'd check for antlers through my rifle scope. Only one thing was bothering me, besides the fact that by now we were supposed to be on the road for this TV report, the problem of looking at deer through glasses that would get covered with water droplets little by little, and finding the same problem with my rifle scope that would also fog up if I closed the lens caps. Well, you can see deer okay with rain-covered glasses, but that's not the problem. The problem is, can you see antlers on deer when you have raindrops on your glasses? That's where I had great difficulty. And when you have only a buck tag, you had better be darn sure that deer has antlers before you shoot. The wind was perfect. We were downwind from the deer, but it also meant the drizzle blew towards us, and I had to clean off my glasses and my scope quite often. Unfortunately, I didn't clean them often enough. I had been watching a doe and her 2 fawns walking down the field, and here they are, and I told myself there was no need to clean my glasses. The rain was coming down too hard. Obviously a doe and 2 fawns. Didn't realize that John was having as much trouble with his camera viewfinder, and he even went to a super telephoto. On a TV screen, those antlers are obvious, but we couldn't see them until the buck got within 100 yards. I would have sworn it was a doe.
It's a buck, dude. It's a buck.
What?
It's a buck.
Where?
Left.
That's a buck.
Yes, the 4-point.
I could barely see the antlers through my glasses. John could only make out 4 points in the viewfinder. Here on TV, we saw it was at least a 6, probably an 8-point with the brow tines. By the time my rifle scope was wiped off and up to my shoulder, that buck, that big buck, the biggest buck I had ever seen on an opening day with a gun in my hand, had sauntered away. Right in front of me and all of you folks. I should have cried over that one, but as I cleaned those glasses off, I was still under the impression it was only a little 4-point. Well, we decided not to leave this spot right away. In fact, we moved down the field a couple 100 yards because it seemed that more deer were coming into the southwest corner of this rye field from an adjoining swamp and aspen stand. Pretty tough visibility as it got dark and the weather closed in, but I checked every deer with clean glasses and a clean rifle scope. Time flashed by, it was getting later and later, but deer kept coming into the field, and there was no way another buck was going to slip by. I mean, no way. What would you do in a circumstance like this? I know what I did. I changed my plan.
Well, my plan was to leave at about 11 o'clock and go to the eastern end of the UP, the bridge, interview hunters on the way. And Bob Garner, I got to apologize to you. You're going to have to interview the hunters. I'm trapped. I can't leave the western end of the Upper Peninsula. The deer have me penned in, hemmed in. I'm afraid if I made a move, it'd be all over for me. So I've got to stay here until dark. John and I decided that we've got to do this. Because there's got to be a buck coming out here sooner or later. We have 11 deer in front of us right now. They've been filtering out for the past couple hours. I just wish I could leave and go interview some other hunters, but I don't know, this is one of the toughest decisions of my life.
No, don't believe that for a minute. It wasn't a tough decision at all. But who could blame me, though, for spending the entire opening day hunting with this many deer around?
Time to check for antlers. Oh, shoot. One thing about this weather. Keeps fogging up the scope. Gotta wipe it off all the time. Antlers. Nope. Ooh, the little fawn back there jumped at something. Maybe a mouse. Not an antler in the group.
Well, I waited right down to the end, last light, cleaning off my scope, wiping off my glasses, checking for antlers on every deer that stepped into the field, rechecking every deer 2 and 3 times. That big buck taught me a lesson. The same lesson I learned over and over on opening day. Don't take anything for granted, or that big buck will slip away once again. Well, that's my tale of woe. I mean, I'm not that terribly bummed out. Everybody gives me a lot of grief over it because I didn't see those antlers, but that's hunting. That's what it's all about. At least that year I was able to put some venison on the table. But now let's talk to some hunters who were successful. Many of them were terribly lucky. This is from one of our big buck nights that we have here on this program, where we have the hunters bring in their racks. Let's look at some of the biggest ones we've had of all times.
Well, this is Steve Nolan from Fremont, and tell me, where on earth did you get this animal?
Hillsdale County, down by the Indiana border.
I have never seen any set of antlers that had the long tines like this one has. This must be 12, 14 inches.
Just a tad over 14.
And how big was the deer?
It's only 180 pounds.
That's a good-sized buck. And what did you shoot him with? Slug?
12 gauge Remington.
Dropped him right there?
4 shots.
4 shots.
I happen to know, Howard, get this, Steve didn't know it was a buck.
Oh.
He was trying to fill his doe tag. Is that right, Steve?
Yes, it is. I was walking crossroads through a cornfield, heading back for lunch, and looked down one of the rows, and I saw a deer standing in crossways in the corn there, and its head was behind one of the rows, so I decided might as well shoot, maybe I'll get lucky. And I shot once and looked down the next row, and it was running away from me, and all I could see was horns, and it was knocking down 2 rows of corn with its horns as it went, and I put 3 more slugs in from behind before he went down.
Man.
Now, I'll bet you're going to have this mounted so you can look at it every day the rest of the year.
You bet.
Look at that 14-inch tine.
Never have I seen anything quite like it.
Isn't that incredible, Steve? You're one heck of a lucky hunter.
Thank you.
Golly, thought it was a doe. We'll kick off our 40 and up club here with a 17-point buck. It has a 24 3/4 inch spread for a score of 41 3/4. Russ Waybrandt, congratulations on this buck. This is terrific.
Thank you.
You got this up? You're a Sault Ste. Marie native.
Sault Ste. Marie and hunting and detour.
Okay, now, did you get this buck from a swamp? You know, you see these dark racks like this and you think of a swamp buck. Is this a swamp?
He was right at the edge of the swamp. That's where he spent all his time.
Your form says you got this on the 2nd day of the season.
Yeah.
The 2nd day of the season was the worst day of the year.
Yeah.
It was a terrible storm. There were hardly any hunters out.
It was one of my better days.
Man, right in the middle of the swamp, though.
Yeah.
You got in where these
Yeah.
bucks are. So what was the situation? Were you sitting?
I was sitting in my blind, my normal spot, but the weather wasn't fit for man or beast, and he probably knew that. So he figured it was a clear day.
Now, this happens to be for those Upper Peninsula hunters who have hunted old Slewfoot. Russ Waybrandt got him. These are the front feet from this deer, and you can see the one evidently was broken or something when it was a young deer. You've been tracking this deer for how long?
5 years now. We could recognize his footprint in the scrapes, and after a sighting.
Yeah, you can see that.
It's just
an odd left front
right.
footprint
You're
there.
correct.
But there's his 2 feet. Old Slewfoot has succumbed to Russ Waybrandt on the wall. I mean, a magnificent buck. What does it score on the Boone and Crockett?
Green scored at 170 to 180.
Huge rack. Congratulations, Russ. Old Slewfoot. And now we need a drum roll here. The 2nd largest buck of tonight. I can't believe, come on in here, Steve Crocker. You're from Jackson.
Yes, sir.
It's unbelievable that this buck would be the 2nd largest that we've seen this year. This has the points. How many points did we total on this?
18.
18 points with a spread. Get a load of this spread.
30 3/8.
30 3/8 because we take the outside spread all the way over to this tine. That is incredible. This buck scores higher than the top buck scores in most years. But you almost had him last year.
Yeah, he was within 10 yards of me last year, ball. He'd come right up out of the swamp, walking right at me. And I was hunting with a release and sights and stuff last year.
All the gadgets and gimmicks.
Yep. And I couldn't get the release snapped on the string. And he stopped 10 yards from me when I got it on.
You could probably hardly breathe. Your heart had to be pounding.
Yeah. And I knew right then when my bow down there was no shooting, because he would stop and he'd seen me. And never seen him again last year.
And you have been living with this memory for a whole year. Now, of course, opening day wasn't too bad of a day. The second day of the season, folks, you remember, it was terrible. Snowing in the Upper Peninsula, raining in the Lower Peninsula. You didn't go hunting that day, did you?
The second day, yeah, we had snow.
That's when you got this one.
Yep, that's it.
What was the story on this day?
I got out of work at 3 o'clock, and I was deciding whether to go or not. And I said, well, what I'll do is I'll call my dad. If he wants to go, I'll go. I called him. He says, yeah. He says, let's go ahead and go out. So we got out, and we went through the fence, and he told me, he said, get in front of me and load your gun. So I got in front of him, loaded the gun, probably walked 50 yards, come charging right at us.
Again, this buck comes up to you.
Yeah. Yep.
But this time, you got him.
Yep. Yeah.
Man, look at this rack with the tines out here, the palmation, the width of 30 5/8, an incredible rack. And the thing is, you almost take the prize for the longest stretch without a buck. How many bucks does this make for your record book?
First one.
The first buck. How about that? Congratulations, Steve Crocker, the first buck. However, we have one story that's going to top you for the longest wait. It certainly isn't the biggest buck, but to Chuck Miller from Ferndale, this buck has special meaning. Now, Steve took 20 years to get his first buck. Mm-hmm. How long have you been hunting, Chuck?
39.
How many bucks have you taken?
This is the first one.
The first one. How many bucks have you seen in that 39 years of deer hunting? Two?
Yeah. Last year I missed it.
You mean in your 38th year you saw your first buck, and in your 39th year you finally got one?
In the same spot.
Boy, I tell you, that's about the story of as much patience as anybody could ever have.
Yeah,
Do they kid you up at deer camp at all?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Do you really go out hunting?
Oh, certainly, yeah.
I mean, 39 years. Let me put a tape to this. Of course, we scored on the Stroh's method. You get 1 point for each antler tine, and we can stretch out here. I think we can give you 7 5/8, giving you a grand total of 9 5/8. How about that? But Chuck, I tell you, your hunting partners wrote us a letter and said you've just been the greatest guy over those 39 years, and congratulations. You've earned it.
Thank you.
Terrific. Chuck Miller. The biggest buck, but not necessarily the most experienced hunter, Mike DeRosa, come on in here. Look at the size of this rack. How many points?
30.
30 points. What's 30 antler points on this. A spread of 22.5, giving it an incredible score of 52.5. Mike DeRosa, you probably have many hunting tales to tell about your years in the woods. Back in the old days, how it was?
Yep.
Yep, Folks, this deer starts his old days. 14 years old, first year hunting. You know, you're going to be asked to do seminars all around the state to talk to groups of hunters and tell them how to get the big ones. So tell me, how did you get this one?
Well, I was sitting there early in the morning, and about 8:20, 8:30, I hear this noise coming from behind me. And all of a sudden I glance over and I see him sniffing the ground. And so I picked up my gun, aimed, I shot, I missed.
You missed?
I missed. The deer took off. It just took right off, and then my dad heard the shot, so he came and he asked me, well, where's the deer? I go, I missed the deer. And he was kind of angry.
He was angry. Did you tell him, how big did you say it was?
Well, I just said it was an average because I didn't really pay much attention to how big it was.
That was an average buck that took off. Okay. So after your dad chewed you out a little bit,
Yeah. Then he looked around at the tracks, and it only ran for maybe 15, 20 yards. Then he noticed it started walking again. So he said, well, sit back down, maybe to come back. Thinking, never is he going to see that deer again. So my dad left, and I sat back down. About 5 minutes later, came right back, exact same tracks.
this buck.
This same exact buck.
Do you have any idea what it was sniffing or why it would come back?
Well, it was going to a scrape,
Oh, and you knew that scrape was there?
and I knew it was there.
Oh, excellent. Excellent hunting tip right there, hunting a scrape. So it came back, and then what did you do?
Well, I picked up, shot, and it dropped.
Oh, be darned. What a story. You know, poor Chuck Miller. You know Chuck that was up here, 39 years hunting. He's never seen this many points in the woods. Just this part of the rack. All his hunting life, and you got 30 points, 2 chances at it. Do you buy lotto tickets?
No.
You should. You honestly should. That is an incredible story. Look at this. 30 points. Mike DeRosa, you will be asked to talk about this, and I think it's an incredibly interesting story. Mike, congratulations. You have kicked off your hunting career in a phenomenal fashion. It's going to be all downhill from here. Okay? Good. That's a great wrap. Oh, I tell you, these big buck stories, I never get tired of hearing them. They're great. So many of these hunters are lucky. I can really relate to it. Maybe someday I'll get a big rack. But keep one thing in mind, folks, please. We don't shoot deer just because they have a big rack. That's not good enough reason. That's not justified or an honorable type of hunting. The only type of hunting that I put on this show and what I believe in personally is hunting for food. We always eat what we shoot. That's our Outdoors Club ethic. And speaking of eating, if you are ready for a dip, a festive dip, one that'll knock your socks off, hang on.
Mary Fuller sent us a venison chili dip recipe that is excellent. And I think anybody who likes the Mexican-style food dishes is really going to enjoy this one. It's got venison burger, and this was done at a processor, but there was no extra fat added to it.
That's the way I like it.
Very lean.
I really don't care for it with beef fat or pork fat in it.
No, I don't either.
And it tastes good when it isn't cooked in oil. You know, I notice you're not putting it in oil.
Nothing
right
goes
there.
into this, no extra fat or anything. And then you just want to cook this real good until it's just little pieces. And add a little bit of garlic powder and a little bit of chili powder. And what's nice about this recipe is you can adjust it as to how hot you want it. If you want it a little bit spicier, of course, you'd add more. And Tabasco sauce, and that's going to warm it up just a little bit.
Yeah, that Tabasco, that goes a long way. But
It sure does. And then you got your chili hot beans, and then just go ahead and stir it all up. And I'm going to add a little bit of cheese to the top, just cheddar cheese, and this will actually melt through and make it just a little bit creamier.
Simple.
Very simple.
Almost too simple.
Yes.
And you just do all this on top of the stove.
Right, yep.
So there's no baking or anything that
Nope.
goes
Now
with it.
this could be served into a chafing dish.
Oh, look, what a way to serve it.
Yes.
Beautiful. Well, you know, our celebrity taste tester today is a guy who is well known in the Lansing area for his love of food, WVIC disc jockey Rich Michaels. And, you know, I'm going to take him rabbit hunting this winter. But he does like the taste of venison. Holy moly!
Look at this stuff.
You like this?
I like food. As you can tell, I do like food.
Yeah, but you've dropped a lot.
Oh, I've dropped a lot, but
We ought to get a pound or two back on you.
I better be the same weight when this thing airs as I am right now, or be less than when this airs.
But this, you can't tell that's venison, can you?
I can't tell this is venison, no, and I detected a little Tabasco in there, and that's really good stuff.
You think there's too much beans and stuff in it?
No, it tastes really good. I'm enjoying it.
I guess.
You talk, I'm eating.
I know a question a lot of people are going to have is, will they be able to hear these beans on your morning show?
Well, Fred, I remember watching your show one night, and you and some other gentleman and you were having some intestinal dysfunctions after eating the dip.
I just want to warn you that you may with this. Rich Michaels is an outspoken guy. If he doesn't like it, he'd say so. But the key to this recipe is good lean venison burger. Now, any ground meat would fit the bill, but in our book, venison can't be beat. It's in the new November-December issue of the Outdoor Digest magazine, along with full-color articles on Tom Walter's bear encounter, how to butcher big game at home or in the field, new research on deer scrapes and rubs, eyeglasses outdoors, all the November-December recipes, an entry form for Williams Gun Sight Hunting and our Moosehead Fishing Awards with a full-color trophy book, an SOS Bureau complaint form, and a lot more. For a sample issue, along with information on joining the Outdoors Club, write to me at Box 1000, Bath, Michigan, 48808. Well, you heard a lot of big buck stories, saw a great recipe, and heard my tale of woe about not even seeing that buck. Well, I tell you, I got my glasses fixed now. I won't make that mistake again. I hope you have a safe hunt and you can get outdoors this weekend for all kinds of outdoor activities. I tell you, it's a great place to be. See you next week. Weekly telecast of Outdoor Digest is made possible through the cooperation of this and other public television stations nationwide. Weekly production of the Outdoor Digest television show is a function of Fred Trost's Outdoors Club, promoting public understanding of hunting and fishing, appreciation of wildlife, and enjoyment of our great outdoors. Here we have a buck that scores 37.5, 11 antler points. Come on in here, John Vetter from Galesburg. 11 antler points, 26.5-inch spread. Now, the phenomenal thing about this buck is that you took it with a handgun.
Yep.
What caliber?
It's a 44 Magnum Ruger Red Hawk with a Leopold scope on top of it.
Have you been hunting with a handgun long?
No, this is actually my first year with a handgun.
Oh, terrific. So far, the biggest buck taken with a handgun this year in our state. That is a tremendous rack. Nearly symmetrical, except it has one extra point on this side. Yep. So what was the story behind it? Where were you hunting? In a cornfield? You were down in southern Michigan?
I was hunting the swamp, and I was walking through, trying to be as quiet as I could, and all of a sudden he just got him napping or something, because he just stood up in this big hunk of sumac, and I pulled up and shot. And
wow. What a heck of a rack. Have you taken other bucks before?
Yes, I have. Nothing like this.
Nothing like this. I would guess. And the thing is, this man waited until 2 days before the end of the season. Yeah. 28th of November, you were pressing it. Tremendous buck, though.
Thank
Congratulations
you.
on that.